Hello and welcome to Sensei podcast. This is Manos Brilakis discussing with leaders in the field of CTO and complex PCI. Sensei means teacher or master in Japanese. The goal of the Sensei podcast is to help you learn and improve in CTO and complex PCI so that you can become the best that you can be and offer your patients the best possible results. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sensei Podcast. It is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Ricardo Santiago, who is the founder of the PCI Cardiology Group and the director of the Bayamon Heart and Lung Institute in Puerto Rico. So actually, Dr. Santiago is the first interventionalist on the podcast from Latin America. So super excited to have you on the podcast today, Ricky, and looking forward to learning from you.
Thank you so much, Manos, for the invitation. I'm absolutely honored to be here and to be in the presence of such a important figure in interventional cardiology as yourself.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but it's exciting to hear because everyone has different background, and I know that in your case, you've done a phenomenal work getting new techniques. The TIL technique comes to mind, doing very complex procedure in an environment that sometimes can be challenging because of equipment and other issues. So maybe we'll just dive right in. Maybe give us your story. How did that start for you? How did you decide to get involved into this area?
Yeah, so I actually, my background is I went to college just because I was following my peers. There was no, I wasn't like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be an interventional cardiologist. So I just went to college and I actually dropped out. I dropped out of college like second year, and I pursued a career in skydiving. So
wow.
I became a skydiving instructor, and then meeting people in the skydiving world, I saw a lot of doctors and a lot of lawyers and a lot of people, and I'm like, I think I should do something else with my life rather than do this. And so I went back to college and finished nuclear medicine technology. That's what I did. Once I stepped into a lab because we were doing the stress test and all that, that's when I became first, involved with cardiology and the cardiovascular medicine and whatnot. And I became fascinated by it. I say, I think I should do medicine, and started doing all that I needed to do to cover that dropout of college and to get into med school. And then all the way to cardiology and thankful interventional cardiology in New Orleans, in Tulane Heart and Lung Institute. So that's how I got involved into interventional cardiology.
Well, that's an amazing story. Actually, we had a few people who want to become pilots after they become cardiologists, but I think you're the first one. At the same time, though, right, that gives you a unique perspective because many other people, like for myself, who got straight to medical school, didn't have this real life experience. How do you think that influenced you in what you want to do, and that make you more determined on doing this?
Absolutely. So when I went to med school, you have your peers, and you have people that are probably, not more immature, but just having less experience, or they want to party, they want to do this. I have done all that. I was there to just get the job done, study, and do what I had to do just to finish up, and have a future. So it definitely played a role, just being experienced or more mature in that way.
And then that, obviously skydiving, at least to me, sounds pretty dangerous. How is that related to you doing complex PCI, which can be, complications? Is that any relationship there, or?
It might be. I mean, you have to keep a cool head. Everybody thinks probably that skydiving is for crazy people, but I can tell you that you have to really know what you're doing, know your procedures, know your emergency procedures. When things go wrong, the most common cause of people dying in skydiving is pilot error or out of sequence stuff in an emergency procedure. So when you're doing this, you need to know your stuff. And when you're under pressure during an emergency, it's when you have to keep a cool head. So I guess that helped me a bit. It was like 3,300 jumps That's what I did, 3,300 jumps or so, before my wife told me, you can't do that anymore.
Well, that's not bad. I mean, that sounds more than a lifetime. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you don't do this anymore? You're retired from skydiving officially?
Yeah, I was forcefully retired from skydiving.
And you never had an injury? You never had any problem after all these thousands of...
Thank God I had to open my reserve like maybe like 3 times. There's people with 20,000 jumps that have never had to open it, but I had to open my reserve like 3 times. If you have use high performance parachutes, sometimes just because of the high performance, you get into trouble more easily. So I had to open my reserve, but thankfully I never ever, never ever had an issue. Myself, of course, I witnessed a lot of stuff. One of my best friends passed away in a skydiving accident, like in 2001. So yeah, I've been through it all in the sport.
So nothing phases you out in the cath lab. That's small things. And I
Well,
guess the big difference is in skydiving, if something goes wrong, it's your own life at risk, right? Whereas
yeah,
when you do a procedure, I mean, obviously you're responsible, but at the same time, it's not your life in the line, which hopefully makes the thing a little more clear. So you said you were an instructor, right? So how did that help you with learning how to do this and how to teach people? Because, I've seen your papers, the way you present, the way you teach, which is
yeah,
very systematic, step by step.
yeah. So I guess I'm very structured in what I do. Probably comes from that background. But in terms of CTO PCI and or complex PCI, when I learned the way I learned to do this actually was because 2000, I guess 10, 11. I mean, there was not many material out there, right? So the way I learned, I keep telling this to people, is I watched live cases. I watched live cases after live case after live case, to the point that I actually repeated them just to see the troubleshooting and just to hear the operators going through the steps, to the point that I memorized, in the same way that you memorize a procedure for skydiving or for doing whatever. But I memorized that. I remember the first thing I tried to memorize was actually a live case from Aaron Grantham doing a Stingray procedure, and I can remember the words of what he was doing, and the crossbows, and the Stingray, and the Miracle 12, and everything. So I guess being structured and keeping a cool head when we're doing this, it helps you. It helps you very much not to wander around in your head, and keep a direction.
So, but let's go back one step. How did you actually get into this? So you trained at Tulane, as you said, right? And at the
Yeah.
time, I'm not sure how much complex was being done. It was the early days, obviously, a few cases done in most labs. Did you learn mainly by watching cases, or did you actually have people proctor you, or went to labs?
Yeah. So I'm the luckiest person in the world, because when I got there, my attending, which is who's called Nidal Aberafi, he's collaborated with you in a couple papers. Nidal had just graduated, had just finished interventional fellowship, and he was there. He was a new attending, and all he wanted to do was complex PCI. And so I was there, and he was bringing proctors just back to back, just to get him right. And I was just standing right there, absorbing, absorbing, absorbing everything. And my wife actually was. I was there in Tulane. My wife was back home in Puerto Rico. So I couldn't be hanging around too much because my wife would kill me. So all I could do was be in the lab, be, listen to all the proctoring, be there, do cases, go back home and watch live cases. And everything they said on the proctors, they said during the day, or I hear something new, I just would go find it out during the night and just study it. And so I got like a very deep, deep, deep dive into complex PCI during that year. And immediately when I got out and came to Puerto Rico, I started getting proctored again. So, it was very, very intense for those 2 years. And from that, you're here, been building it up slowly, and here we are.
So literally, see one, do one, teach one, I guess, right? So you literally did it
Yeah.
in that way. And then how are you handling these cases? So you went in an environment, right, that is not potentially having all the ICUs and all the expensive equipment sometimes, and even now there can be a limitation for many U.S. centers as well. How do you deal with that, and how are you be able to do some of these procedures that can be very resource intensive?
Yes. So in the beginning, the materials were an issue because I remember getting the microcatheters, getting the wires, getting everything. But at that time, there was really nobody doing CTO PCI or really really complex PCI back in Puerto Rico. So there was a niche there that it was just not being exploited. And me and my partner, by the way, and I'm the co-founder of the PCI Cardiology Group, Valentin del Rio. So we saw that and we said, we can, we can exploit this. And I started doing the cases, and of course, if you start doing very complex stuff and people start, getting complications or, God forbid, dying, you're not doing yourself or your group a great favor. So we build it up slowly, right? And through that time, we started talking to our administrators to get the materials. And even though they knew that with the insurance companies they were going to probably be even or lose money on some CTO cases, we knew that we were going to get referrals from everywhere, and build the program up in that way and use other resources to the halo effect as it's been described. And that's how we did it. We've never had an issue with procedural limitations until actually last year. I guess it's been building up, building up, building up. We've done the most we've done in one center is 150 CTOs in a year, which is it's okay for
It's a
one
great
center.
number, absolutely.
Yeah, but then now after having that a couple of years in a row, they will say they say, you have to start doing less cases a month. Just starting to cut costs a little bit because they're getting more complicated because we're a referral center. So everything that's coming is
Sure.
it's bad, right? So they're very expensive cases. And so with regards to that, the expertise is there. We have everything. We have our surgeons. We have our intensive care. Mechanical support is an issue if we need it for Puerto Rico. Impella, not like readily available. We have to ask for permission and certifications and whatnot just to use it electively. I haven't had the opportunity to use it in an emergency just because I need it. That's a
Sure.
problem, a limitation for
Sure.
Puerto Rico.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so it's more of the same.
So you build it slowly, as you said, and you slowly got the reputation out there, and now you're becoming a referral center, which is again how many people do it. And obviously, you're providing a great service because there are patients, there's a clinical need, as you said before. Now, how
Yeah.
do you deal with the psychological part of this? Do you get nervous to those cases, or after skydiving, nothing phases you?
No. I get. I don't know if I could say I could get nervous at this point. I know I would. I see my procedures. I plan my procedures. I do all my procedures. The program has been by myself. I don't have a second operator with me. I have a great tech that I have trained with me that she can read. I know what's happening. But yeah, I just study very well the cases before, and I go there, well prepared. I don't think you know being nervous before a procedure. I mean, probably before a life case, I would get nervous just because of everything that's involved. But I go ready and prepared. And during the case, I would say that during a case, I would get nervous. I get more nervous during the case than before, and it happens. I don't know why, but I always say that the most technically complex thing to do in CTO PCI is just doing ADR, a stingray. For some reason, you can mess up the procedure in so many ways. Mess up the landing zone in so many ways that for some reason I'm getting a knuckle down and getting there and getting to the landing zone and getting the for some reason, when I'm going to stick, I feel, I know I'm a little bit more nervous. And of course, the trying to avoid the epicardials. But whenever I'm in an epicardial, my heart rate goes up for sure. But not before the procedure, during the procedure for sure. But I think it keeps you focused. Nerves are good. Nerves are not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. Within a certain reason, I guess, if you don't get any nervous at all, then that's when complications are going to come. So I could not agree
Yeah,
more than that.
yeah.
And then how do you deal with complications? Do you get depressed? They don't bother you as much? How do you deal with the psychological part and the actual part of the complications?
No, man. So it's complications. They take a toll on you for sure. And I think it also depends on the moment in your learning curve that they start occurring, that it will be a little bit more different. Thankfully, and I'll, knock on wood, but thankfully my complications, they will always happen, but it happened a little bit when I had a little bit more experience. And I'm talking about not just routine complications. I mean, when doing the CTO, and I say to people, there are two things that are going to change you forever, and is in this space, and is the first time you open a CTO and the patient comes to the office and says, "Oh my God, I feel great." You don't need anything else. There's no data. There's nothing that will convince you more than that guy's telling you that he feels great. And then there's nothing that's also going to change your perspective more, that when you have the first patient come in walking from their home just to get a CTO done, and you have your first mortality and it dies on the table. So, it changed me forever. I say this candidly when I go to Proctor, or when I go out. My first mortality was it's a female. She had 3 CTOs, and I crossed the RCA like super quick, but she was getting hypotensive, and I couldn't explain it. Couldn't explain it. She went to a shock spiral. I couldn't get her out, and she died. And then when we saw the case and we realized it was just the guide. It was just the guide pushing on the aorta, and that was it. She was not perfed. I mean, we even took her to the OR, and they opened her up. And I'm like, something has to be wrong. No. So she was so hypertense with acute aortic regurgitation, whatnot. She went to a spiral because of the other 2 CTOs and whatnot, and I couldn't get her out. And I was like, how can I? That took a toll. I mean, I couldn't sleep that day, just because I knew it's absolutely preventable. And when we go to courses now, everybody's talking about the guide on the valve, between other things. But that was my first one. I remember it. I will remember it forever. And it definitely took a toll on me and changed me. And whenever something else happens, it gets tougher with time, having to talk to the family and, see their reaction in their eyes, like something bad is going to happen. So it definitely takes a toll on you. And you need to, right now, what I do is, after, of course, going back into my head and trying to learn from what happened, I do my thing, go and try to do exercise, do something different to get my mind off, of what happened. Being, absolutely clear that I have to learn from that experience. Just reminding myself.
Yeah, and I think thanks for sharing, because these are the tough things to share, right? I mean, everyone has complications, and it's not always shared. And I think listening to this, someone else might, catch it. If something happens, the same thing happens to them, they may be able to catch it earlier on and potentially avoid the complications. So everything that is shared, I think, goes a long way. So I guess the patient, whatever happened to the patient happened, but how can this help yourself and others in the future for preventing similar things?
Yeah.
Now, how do you said you exercise, how do you keep in good shape to do all this, 150 cases in one lab? That's quite a number. How do you keep in good shape to be able to do all that?
Yeah, so I try, whenever I have not a super crazy day, like getting out of the lab at 8, 9 p.m., which is not the norm, but it happens. So I try to go to the gym like at 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. I have a trainer, so I go there, just private, me and him, and I do a little bit of CrossFit, but not the crazy one, with all the people, and I try to keep myself healthy, not get injured or whatnot. But that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to do a little bit of CrossFit right now. I said I would never do that, but it actually it's cool. There's a lot of technique involved. We say it's not, power. Sometimes in CTO PCI is technique. It's not, just apply brute force. Sometimes you need technique, and it's the same with CrossFit. There's a lot of technique involved with the weightlifting and stuff, and so it's good. It's a nice
And then
exercise.
there's the commitment too, I guess. So if you have the trainer
Yeah.
coming, then you have to show up as well. So
Yeah.
there's no
And
easy
you have
way
to
out.
pay.
There you go.
You have to pay, so you have to go.
And then do you get tired after doing that, or it makes you feel good for the rest of the day?
No, absolutely not. I would encourage everyone, to do your type of exercise. Some people do running. I don't like to run a lot. Um, but I feel great. Even the times when I'm like, oh my God, I should not go. I would rather stay home and just do nothing, or go straight to the lab. Right when I get there and I start, and then at the end I'm like, I feel great. Yeah, exercise it's good for you, and for us, that we live in such a high stress environment. It's a good way to take the edge off. So I encourage everyone to do it.
And then have you had any issues with your back and radiation and the lead, or you've been doing okay and the exercise helping you that too?
Yeah, it's helping me. I'm very envious of everybody having the Rampart system right now. Um, but no, I haven't had issues. I have good posture. I try to use the ones that are, have the belt around your waist and whatnot. So not yet. I'm sure it's a thing about, I've only been doing this for like close to 10 years. If you do this for long, you're gonna get injured. There's no way to get out of it. I think any shielding system is the way to go. Do this without lead.
Okay. And then do you have any favorite books or any favorite movie?
Oh man, so everybody, yeah, I saw some of the podcast, and everybody's saying the same. So I would say I love Apollo 13. Apollo 13. Now, nobody, I think nobody has mentioned that one, but Apollo 13, which was recorded in zero gravity, in the plane doing zero gravity stuff and whatnot. So that was real zero gravity. That was an amazing movie, and of course, you have to go with the new Top Gun. The new Top Gun movie is just amazing. So
So living on the edge, I
yeah,
guess, with your skydiving and everything, the flying
yeah,
thing is very strong and
yeah.
alive.
I love that. I love that. Books, I really, I don't read that a lot. I what I read is related to my work and medicine. I say this joking around, but first time I ever read like a book cover to cover was in med school because I had to read it. Otherwise, I just, but I like more. I'm more a visual guy, so TV and just watching videos and stuff, but not really into the into being there and reading. My wife likes that a lot.
Perfect. And then when you go and teach many people, you do all the proctoring. How do you approach this? Do you ever tell people, "Hey, this is not for you," or you always try to make the best out of the situation?
Yeah, so having a proctor a lot around Latin America, when you go there, you have your checklist in your head when you go to a new lab. So first you get there, see the equipment, see your shielding system, see your emergency stuff. Where's the pericarditis and TC3? Where try to get the lab have figured out. And then when we see the cases, invariably there's always very complex cases for the proctoring, right? And so I have a very hard time trying to tell them, like, this is supposed for it's not for me to get in the case and do it. is supposed to be for you to do it, right? And I'll help you to do the basics. Um, but yeah, the majority of the time, I try just explain, the step by step of why we're here and why we should do it this way or that way. And I try to tell them that I'm gonna help them. I don't have, I'm not the guy that's gonna tell you, no, you shouldn't do this case. Um, you know, Whatever, cancel the case. I won't do that. I would try to help in any way I can, in any safe way I can. And, you know, and if I have to scrub in, I'll scrub in. And in Latin America, there's also a little bit of issues with the material, which you should
Sure.
know. So, for example, if you go, we've gone to places where there's only like you only have a pre-shaped Pilot 200. So, I mean, pre-shaped and not many alternatives. So, your success rate is gonna decrease. And I'm amazed, actually. There's operators like Joao Tinoco and people in Brazil that they don't have all the material, and they're amazing operators, crazy skills. They do crazy cases, and I say, oh, imagine if they had, you know, everything available. Um, but yeah, once when you're in different labs and in different countries, I think you need to adjust. But it's important for people to understand that we're there to guide them, and not for us to do the cases. But of course, if we need to get in and help them, we for sure will do that.
And then, how do you find? What do you find the most difficult thing to teach? Is it Stingray? Is it retrograde? What is the hardest thing to convey to people who are learning?
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, I think technically the most difficult thing to do is this dissection reentry, device based dissection reentry. Just because all the little steps that you need to not to get the stingray down there, but everything you do is important to to be successful. Because if you mess with the subintimal space, with the reentry zone in any shape, way, or form, you're gonna have an issue, right? And so, I think technically it's hard to teach, um, but from the procedural standpoint and everything going, just doing retrograde and all the steps involved when removing gear and whatnot. It's also a place where people are excited because of what's happening over here in the CTO, and they forget about the donor vessel, and they forget about what can happen there when you're moving gear. So that's the other place when I'm proctoring, that's where I've seen issues. Like, you start getting excited with the base of operations, and you forget about the donor vessel and what you need to do there, and the guide catheter and all that. So those are the two things I think are the most, the awareness during the procedure of the whole thing, and then technically the stingray. You know, doing it correctly. It's kind of technically hard.
Wonderful. And I know that you are famous for the tilt technique, which I'm still trying to understand what the acronym stands for, but maybe you want to share with us, because I think many people have been using it successfully. So how did you come up with the idea, and how did this all happen?
No, so yeah, I think I've seen. I saw the original paper, by Jason Wolmuth, I think, and then you guys published, just having the guide extension pinned in the vessel with a balloon using a ping pong technique, right? And so I was called for a STEMI, and it was a STEMI. There was an operator who has having issues crossing because it was a SVG to diag, and the STEMI was of the LAD, and there was no Lima. So it was occluded at the ostium of the diagonal, right? So he had to come retrograde through the vein graft, cross the ostium of the diag, and get into the LAD. And so he tried many times, and he couldn't do it. And so what I did is I first tried put a guide extension all the way down in the vein graft, just put a microcatheter, and got it. No issues getting into the LAD, right? Just because it was just a soft thrombus in the ostium
Sure.
of the diag. But when I try to get everything to just pre-dilate and get a stent in, like a stent from a diag to the LAD, because we couldn't do the acutely the LAD CTO, right? So everything was coming out. Everything was coming out, and I'm like, I need to do this. Give me an 8. So I got an 8 French guide, and I have 5 French guide extensions, and that's the one that what I was using because I didn't need anything else bigger. So I put the guide extension all the way down with an 8 French AL1, and then all of a sudden I noticed that I could get an parallel, just completely outside of the guide extension, a balloon, in all within the same system. So, well, I pinned the guide extension in the SVG, and everything. I mean, everything moved. All through all the course, LAD down the stents, everything was great, and that's how it was born, right? Just doing a single guide, you know, um, pinning the guide extension with a balloon, and the tilt is like a tunnel. You're creating a tunnel, and the landslide. And just because we need it, and everything in CTO, PCI, and cardiology has a cool name. So I needed to have a cool name for the publication. So tunnel in landslide technique is like the tunnel is the guide extension, right? It's a tunnel. And the landslide is just the balloon pushing it, right? And so you create a landslide to pin the tunnel, and then you go through it. And that's it. That's a landslide technique.
Well, this
And
is
it works,
awesome.
and it works great. And you described it to block and deliver too. So and I saw the case, and it was great to deliver a cover stent. So
Yeah,
great.
no, it was very inspiring, and again, it's a great way to do it. It's a little easier, as you said, if you have a second guide catheter because of the issues delivering. We didn't really have
Yeah,
5.5 guide extensions, but you're right. It's an extra tool and can really make a big difference in some of those complex cases. So, how do you
yeah,
get these ideas? Do they just happen out of necessity? Do you sleep over them and then you get up in the morning and you have it? How does that happen for you?
yeah. No. I think it's out of necessity the majority of the times. I mean, when you're doing this crazy stuff, I mean, sometimes you come up with ideas and you say, I wonder if I had this or I had that, if I could do this, if I could have this device. Um, I sometimes think if we have a guide extension with a balloon within the guide extension, just to be able to inflate it within the coronary, that would be amazing. I come up with this. I can't get it done, but but yeah, um, majority of ideas come from necessity, and sometimes you're inspired by other fields and other people working. I saw the catheter that you do. I can't remember the name right now, but the new ADR catheter, you can do aspiration
So
at the same time.
Bill Nicholson's,
Arrhythmias.
yeah,
Bill
yeah.
Nicholson's catheter. I can't remember the name of the catheter right now, but I mean, when you see the IVUS of that thing, and it's amazing because that's exactly what you need. Get some suction going, get that, get the true lumen just reconstructed and get in. That's amazing. And it's amazing that they come up with it.
Yeah, no, and again, that's one of the advantages, I guess, for CTO and complex is there's always new equipment coming up, new microcasters, new
Yeah,
reentry stuff. So you always have new things to work with.
yeah,
Um, what are you most proud of? You've done so many things, and you created a lot of opportunity for other people and a lot of patient benefit in Puerto Rico. As you said, I don't think there's many people doing this kind of work that you do. What are the things that you're most proud of, both personally and professionally?
yeah. So I think being able to build a complex PCI program, the way we've done it, successfully in Puerto Rico. It's been amazing. It's I've met so many people. It's crazy how it's grown. In Latin America, made so many friends. Um, and I have grown a lot and professionally since this started, and it's all thanks to all these people that I have met. And it started in the CTO summit in New York. That's how I started meeting people. It's crazy. It's crazy how it happened, and get invited to the Latam CTO registry, and then just from there keeps going and going and going, and meeting people like Lorenzo, yourself, that have helped me a lot. So I'm really proud of being able to deliver this type of care for patients in our community, because it didn't exist before. It really didn't exist before. So I'm super, super proud and happy that we're being able to do that. And I'm super proud of just being here with you. I mean, in this field, in this forum, it's crazy. We just presented in CTO Plus is something that that was a goal for me professionally, just to be there in New York and be in the big stage. And doing live cases I've done for CTO Live Aid, that was great. And I guess the final goal will be to do a live case at CTO Plus, New York.
Perfect. Well,
that would
again,
be the retiring case.
well, don't get any ideas about retirement now. You're pretty young, so this is not the time for this conversation.
Yeah, yeah, but you have to plan ahead. Plan ahead.
Absolutely. Well, again, you've done a phenomenal work in all the aspects, and phenomenal building of your program, but also helping the whole community to grow and get better as well. So, if you had to give some advice, a few sentences, what are the key things you think would help people who want to learn this, both in Latin America but other parts of the world as well? What would you suggest?
Oh, so you have to work hard. The thing here is there's a lot of talented people, right? There's a lot of talented people out there. Maybe you see all these operators out there, and you're probably inspired, but you don't think you can do it or whatnot. You have to work very, very hard and be passionate at what you do, because there's a lot of talented people out there, but passion beats talent every day of the week, right? So if you're passionate about what you do, you learn from your mistakes and stay humble, because I'm sure, I mean, this would be a common topic. I think egos are the biggest enemy in interventional cardiology and what we do. If I can't do it, you can't do it, and all that sort of nonsense. This is it's an enemy, and by the way, it's a very common thing in Latin America, probably in the US too. But in Latin America, every time I go to people and people come to me, we're always talking about how egos get involved in all this. So leave your ego in your house or outside of the lab. Be passionate about what you do. Learn from your mistakes, and just keep learning every day. Keep learning. Keep growing.
Wonderful. Well, again, Ricky, thanks again so much. Again, it's a unique perspective having all this skydiving experience. I'm sure we will hear more about it down the line. But thanks for taking the time. I think that may have been actually part of the success and the determination and the creativity that you've shown. So thanks again for taking the time today, for building a great program, and for everything you do for the field.
Thank you so much, Manos. Thank you for the invitation, and honor to be representing Latin America here. And I hope to see you soon.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Sensei podcast.